In the year 1573, 2 years following the death of Shingen Takeda, Shingen's son Katsuyori began the long journey to the capital in order to carry on his father's ambition. Nobunaga Oda, known throughout the land as the Demon King, saw this as the perfect opportunity to eliminate the Takeda once and for all and set forth to meet him at Nagashino. Katsuyori gave the order to charge the Oda army. However, lying in wait for his men was a force equipped with 3,000 rifles. That day, the renowned Takeda warrior Yukimura Sanada watched as countless brave men fell to the fiery rain of bullets. The battle had made it painfully clear that the age of the traditional warrior had ended, and a new age of modern combat was about to begin.
My pride may be lost, but I will not give up the fight. Chapter 1. Retreat from Nagashino. My spear shall lead me to victory!
Somehow, Yukimura Sanada managed to escape the horrors of Nagashino. Shortly thereafter, the Takeda perished, and Nobunaga Oda also met his demise at Honnoji. Eventually, a warrior by the name of Hideyoshi Toyotomi seized control of the land. Masamune Date, ruler of Oshu, had already submitted, leaving the Hojo in Odawara as Hideyoshi's only adversary. With intentions to unify the land under his rule, Hideyoshi gathered his retainers from far and wide and set forth to conquer Odawara. Yukimura, who had long lost the will to fight, found himself on the battlefield once again, attacking with the army from the west.
Honor and friendship. These are all I have left for which to fight. Chapter 2. Siege of Odawara Castle. My spear shall lead me to victory!
The Hojo in Odawara stood little chance against the sheer size of Hideyoshi's forces and were quickly overwhelmed. However, following Hideyoshi's death, many of the retainers who had once faithfully served the Toyotomi instead pledged their loyalty to the charismatic Ieyasu Tokugawa. Yukimura's trusted friend, Mitsunari Ishida, swore to protect the reign of the Toyotomi and soon became enemies with Ieyasu. Ieyasu knew Mitsunari would have to be killed and raised an army against him led by Masanori Fukushima. With little support remaining, Mitsunari became isolated in Kyoto. Upon hearing this, Yukimura grabbed his spear and rode forth, determined to save his longtime friend.
I cannot allow what little I have left in this world to be lost. Chapter 3. Rescue of Mitsunari. My spear shall lead me to victory!
Thanks to Yukimura's efforts, Mitsunari Ishida was saved from peril and rushed to safety. However, tensions between Ieyasu and Mitsunari continued to mount. In an effort to raise troops, Mitsunari asked his good friend Kanetsugu Naoe to join him in the fight against Ieyasu. Yukimura also sided with Mitsunari's western army, and along with his father Masayuki Sanada, set out to defend Ueda-Castle from Ieyasu's son Hidetada.
For the sake of friendship, I will never give up the fight! Chapter 4. Defense of Ueda-Castle. My spear shall lead me to victory!
Yukimura defeated Hidetada's massive army, only to discover that the Western army had been defeated at Sekigahara. To make matters worse, the battle had claimed the life of his good friend, Mitsunari. A few years later, in an effort to truly consolidate his power over the land, Ieyasu amassed his army and set forth to destroy Osaka Castle. Ieyasu was close to achieving his dream of unifying Japan. The upcoming battle would be Yukimura's last chance to avenge the death of his friend. Yukimura was clearly outnumbered, but he was adamant in his desire to oppose Ieyasu. Kanetsugu, however, did not agree with Yukimura and joined the ranks of the Tokugawa in hopes of preserving his clan's prestige.
Now I have truly lost everything. Only the will to fight remains. Chapter 5, Osaka Campaign. My loyalty shall lead me to victory.
After the death of Hideyoshi, the land was contested between Ieyasu Tokugawa and Mitsunari Ishida, defender of the Toyotomi. With the chance for one of them to unify Japan at stake, the deciding battle would take place at Sekigahara. Yukimura moved swiftly and defeated Ieyasu's son, Hidetada, at Ueda. Immediately, he rushed to the aid of his good friend Mitsunari at Sekigahara.
There is still time. I can still change the fate of this land. Yukimura's dream. Battle of Sekigahara. My loyalty shall lead me to victory.
It was a few years following Nobunaga's death at Honnoji that Hideyoshi began to pursue his late master's ambitions as his own. Before long, Hideyoshi forced the surrender of Masamune Date, ruler of Oshu, leaving the Hojo in Odawara as his only adversary. In the year 1590, Hideyoshi gathered his vassals from far and wide and set forth to conquer Odawara in an attempt to unify the land under his rule. Standing among the many warriors in Hideyoshi's western army, the figure of Keiji Maeda could be seen. A giant of a man, Keiji loved battle more than life itself.
So this fight will determine who rules the land, huh? This is gonna be sweet! Chapter 1, Siege of Odawara Castle. Let's go crazy!
The Hojo in Odawara stood little chance against the sheer size of Hideyoshi's forces, and were soon defeated. However, following Hideyoshi's death, many of the retainers who had once served the Toyotomi faithfully now pledged their loyalty to the charismatic Ieyasu Tokugawa instead. Ieyasu welcomed these new recruits into his army and set forth to eradicate Mitsunari Ishida, the loyal retainer of the Toyotomi. Always in search of a challenge, Keiji decided to help the weak and isolated forces of Mitsunari.
Helping out these poor fellas could cost me my life. Ain't I heroic? Chapter 2, Rescue of Mitsunari. Let's go crazy!
Thanks to Keiji's incredible strength and prowess, Mitsunari's forces were able to seize victory from the jaws of defeat. Along the way, Keiji befriended Kanetsugu Naoe and chose to follow him back to his home to serve under the Uesugi. When the two men arrived, they were greeted with pleas from the people to stave off recent pirate raids that had plagued the region. After the long, uneventful ride from Kyoto, Keiji was more than happy to oblige.
Sure, being a pirate has its allure, but killing pirates? That's the life for me! Chapter 3, Pirate Hunt. Let's go crazy!
Faced with Keiji's amazing heroics, the pirates fled and were never heard from again. Kanetsugu was grateful for this favor, and the friendship between him and Keiji grew stronger than ever. As the years passed, Kanetsugu became increasingly angered by Ieyasu's attempts to seize the land. In response, he allied himself with Mitsunari Ishida and attempted to overthrow the despotic Ieyasu. The plan ended in failure, and Ieyasu turned westward and defeated Mitsunari at Sekigahara. Mitsunari's whereabouts after the battle were unknown. Meanwhile, Kanetsugu was being pursued by one of Ieyasu's strongest allies, Masamune Date. Suddenly, Keiji Maeda appeared, intent on rescuing his good friend despite facing certain death.
I wonder if we're gonna survive this! Ooh, I love the suspense! Chapter 4, Battle of Hasedo. Let's go crazy!
Thanks to Keiji's efforts, Kanetsugu was able to win the battle at Hasedo and escape from the clutches of Masamune Date. Kanetsugu, joined by his friend Yukimura Sanada, decided to attack Ieyasu's son Hidetada at Edo Castle in an attempt to avenge the deceased Mitsunari. Moved by this show of friendship and loyalty, Keiji decided to join them as they began the march towards Edo. Ieyasu, however, was already aware of the coming assault and was preparing a massive army of his own in response.
This battle's gonna go down in history. Hey, I wonder if I will too! Chapter 5, Siege of Edo Castle. I think I'm gonna enjoy this!
One day, Hideyoshi Toyotomi and Ieyasu Tokugawa got into a heated argument over who was the strongest warrior in the land. Ieyasu said it was Tadakatsu Honda, while Hideyoshi swore it was Keiji Maeda. The two decided that the only way to settle the argument was to hold a mock battle between their two armies and place the two men in direct competition. The conditions were set. The Toyotomi army would position itself inside a castle, and the Tokugawa army would attack from the outside. Keiji couldn't believe his good fortune. At long last, he was going to have a chance to prove his strength to all of the land.
The Wild Man of the West versus the Beast of the East! Keiji's dream. Tournament of Champions. I think I'm going to enjoy this!
Nobunaga Oda, who was once but a minor ruler in his homeland of Owari, shocked the realm with his victory over Yoshimoto Imagawa at Okehazama. He followed this with even more victories, seizing control of a large territory that covered the domains of Mino, Omi, and Echizen. But even this was not enough to quench his thirst for power. For his next move, Nobunaga attacked the powerful Takeda clan, decimating its legendary cavalry in a single battle. Now, if he could just scatter their main army in Nagashino, his name would truly be feared throughout the land.
Fight, struggle, and die. Chapter 1, Battle of Nagashino, if this is what you desire.
Nobunaga enjoyed victory at Nagashino and proved his might to the land. However, this success only served to anger the other feudal lords throughout Japan. Nobunaga's remaining enemies were now desperate to stop him. Yet another source of dissent against him was the temple Honganji in Osaka. The temple was especially dangerous as it held great influence over the common people, including those within Nobunaga's own domain. Angered, Nobunaga marched his army to Osaka to take control of the temple. In response, Honganji called for help from the Mori, the most powerful clan in Japan's western regions. The Mori army took up position in Osaka Bay. There it planned to bring Nobunaga's success to an abrupt and painful end.
Ha! Cling to your pathetic hopes and die. Chapter 2, Battle of Osaka Bay, if this is what you desire.
The battle at Osaka Bay ended in victory for Nobunaga. With nobody left to stand in his way, he began wiping out the last remnants of the Honganji rebels. In response to this, a furious Kenshin Uesugi dutifully set out from the east in order to destroy Nobunaga. In return, Nobunaga sent Katsuie and Hideyoshi to stop the Uesugi army. However, the two soon found themselves struggling against Kenshin's superior tactics. Hearing this, Nobunaga decided to take matters into his own hands. He set out to fight Kenshin in what would become one of the biggest battles of its time.
Give it your all until nothing is left. Chapter 3, Battle of Tedorigawa, if this is what you desire.
Following the battle with Nobunaga, the Uesugi army was crippled, and Kenshin himself lay slain at Tedorigawa. The Oda had only one enemy left in Japan's east, Shingen's son, Katsuyori Takeda. Nobunaga wasted no time in mounting the attack. With support from the Tokugawa and Hojo, he pummeled the remaining forces of the Takeda army. Left with little other choice, Katsuyori fled. Katsuyori took shelter with Masayuki Sanada in Ueda Castle, where he was able to make contact with what was left of the Uesugi clan. Though former enemies, the Uesugi and Takeda shared a common foe in Nobunaga. Together, they hoped to exact their revenge.
Gather, resist, and die. Chapter 4, Fall of the Takeda, if this is what you desire.
The Oda succeeded in defeating the combined forces of the Takeda and Uesugi. With the east now under his control, Nobunaga returned to the capital and immediately began preparations to head west. While taking a brief respite at Honnoji, Nobunaga ordered Mitsuhide Akechi to go on ahead and assist Hideyoshi, who was already struggling in a campaign on the Western Front. However, Mitsuhide's reinforcements never reached Hideyoshi. After great deliberation, Mitsuhide decided to lead them toward Honnoji instead.
Resist, fight, and survive. Chapter 5, Incident at Honnoji. If this is what you desire.
Nobunaga was spared by Mitsuhide at Honnoji, but the incident caused widespread confusion within the Oda ranks. As a result, several ambitious warlords decided to seize this chance to steal the land back from Nobunaga. The most prominent among them was Ieyasu Tokugawa, who organized a vast army which he called the Anti-Nobunaga Alliance. Nobunaga, however, was not in the least bit disturbed. Thanks to Ieyasu, his strongest enemies were now gathered in one place. If he could just manage to defeat them, the land would surely be his for the taking.
The harder the fight, the greater the prize. Nobunaga's dream, Nobunaga unites Japan. This is what I desire.
Mitsuhide Akechi had gone without a master for many years, until he finally found a lord who he felt was worthy of his service. That lord was an ambitious young man named Nobunaga Oda. While in Nobunaga's service, Mitsuhide demonstrated many feats of valor, particularly during the campaign to take control of the capital. Later, when Nobunaga was suddenly betrayed by his brother-in-law, Nagamasa Azai, it would be Mitsuhide Akechi who came to his rescue. Attacked on his rear flank by Nagamasa while already battling with the Asakura clan, Nobunaga had no choice but to retreat. It was at this critical moment that Mitsuhide Akechi bravely volunteered for the perilous duty of manning the rear guard.
The moment we met, that is when all became clear. Chapter 1, Retreat from Kanegasaki. I shall dedicate my life to him.
Owing great thanks to Mitsuhide's efforts, the Oda escaped from Nagamasa's pursuit and successfully withdrew from Kanegasaki. However, Nobunaga could not forgive Nagamasa for his betrayal. He quickly set forth to battle him again, this time defeating him at Anegawa. But Nobunaga was not satisfied with just this one victory. Determined to finish Nagamasa once and for all, Nobunaga pursued him all the way to Odani Castle. It was at this moment that Mitsuhide began to question Nobunaga's ruthless tactics.
The future of this land is with Lord Nobunaga. Chapter 2, Siege of Odani Castle. I shall dedicate my life to him.
Nobunaga destroyed both the Azai and Asakura at Odani Castle. In addition, he went on to defeat the Takeda at Nagashino, further increasing the territory beneath his control. However, a strong resentment was growing throughout the land towards his swift expansion. Nobunaga wished to strike fear into those who opposed him. He decided to obliterate the Saika, a group of mercenary riflemen who frequently lent their strength to his enemies. Mitsuhide felt it dishonorable to attack such a simple band of rogues, but he set out to battle with hope that victory would also bring much-needed peace.
Someday, this land will never need fear the threat of war. Chapter 3, Assault on the Saika. I shall dedicate my life to him.
Mitsuhide destroyed the Saika. With his own hands, he had slain men who had no political stake in ruling the land. Men who fought primarily to earn the food and clothes they needed to survive. Then he realized something. Serving a lord who would order such slaughter would never result in peace. If Mitsuhide wanted peace, he would have to achieve it all on his own. The Akechi army, originally heading west to assist Hideyoshi Toyotomi, instead turned back towards Honnoji, where Nobunaga was lodged. Nobunaga and Mitsuhide, master and servant. These two warriors were about to wage war in a battle that would forever change the course of history.
My life is but a small risk to do what is right. Chapter 4, Incident at Honnoji. Lord Nobunaga, the time has come.
Mitsuhide and Nobunaga's clash at Honnoji ended with Mitsuhide standing alone among the fiery ruins. I must avenge Lord Nobunaga. Hideyoshi repeated these words to himself as he mobilized his forces from the west to hunt down Mitsuhide. Mitsuhide, now branded a traitor, accepted his destiny and decided to face Hideyoshi in battle. This is what had to be done to achieve true and lasting peace. As soon as the land was his, Mitsuhide thought, this would all be behind him.
I must not waver. Everything is falling into place. Chapter 5, Battle of Yamazaki. My ambition shall make this land whole.
Mitsuhide defeated Hideyoshi, proving once and for all that he was indeed worthy of ruling the land. However, one individual refused to accept servitude under Mitsuhide. That man was Ieyasu Tokugawa of Mikawa. Ieyasu mobilized his troops in the east and set forth to challenge Mitsuhide. Calmly, Mitsuhide gathered his men and set out to battle once again.
The struggle is almost over. Let this battle be my last. Mitsuhide's dream. Mitsuhide unites Japan. My ambition shall make this land whole.
Kenshin Uesugi, the Dragon of Echigo. A man who loved the heat of battle and detested the wicked. Some believed him to be the physical embodiment of Bishamonten, the god of war. Shingen Takeda, the Tiger of Kai, an experienced warlord and master strategist. His domain was famous as the home of the greatest cavalry in all the land. The two fought a total of 3 battles at Kawanakajima, each believing the other to be his ultimate rival. In the year 1561, they rode out to battle for a 4th time.
So far you have proven my equal, Nemesis, but that will soon change.
Chapter 1, Battle of Kawanakajima.
I shall teach you the true meaning of war.
The Uesugi army won the Battle of Kawanakajima. However, neither Kenshin nor Shingen was satisfied enough to call it their final confrontation. They decided that would have to wait for another day. When Kenshin returned home, he learned that a group of bandits had taken advantage of his absence to pillage his territory. Determined to rid his lands of these criminals, Kenshin set out to stop them.
I pity this enemy for the horrors they are about to face.
Chapter 2, Village Rescue.
I shall teach you the true meaning of war.
Kenshin hunted down the bandits and drove them from his territory. In the meantime, his nemesis Shingen was attempting a campaign to take over the capital. However, soon after Shingen began his march, he was halted by Nobunaga Oda, who led an army equipped with 3,000 rifles. When he heard of this, Kenshin was infuriated and refused to let Nobunaga steal the glory of slaying his longtime nemesis. He hurriedly readied his army for battle and rushed to Shingen's side. Thus, Kenshin and Shingen, two sworn rivals, joined forces in an attempt to destroy Nobunaga at Nagashino.
Foolish Oda, you are not worthy of the battle that lies ahead.
Chapter 3, Melee at Nagashino.
I shall teach you the true meaning of war.
Nobunaga, despite the power of his 3,000 rifles, was forced to make a hasty retreat when faced with the combined forces of Kenshin and Shingen. Shingen continued on his path towards the capital. Not to be outdone, Kenshin was close behind, albeit by a different route. With the two armies separated once again, Nobunaga hoped to take revenge on the Uesugi army for upsetting his plan at Nagashino. He regrouped his forces and raced to meet Kenshin at Tedorigawa. However, Nobunaga himself took longer to arrive than the rest of his army. When the attack began, the Oda army was left under the control of Katsuie and Hideyoshi.
Nobunaga, the great Tedorigawa will wash your ambitions away for good. Chapter 4, Battle of Tedorigawa.
I shall teach you the true meaning of war.
Despite being in a spirited race to the capital with Shingen, Kenshin somehow managed to defeat the Oda army at Tedorigawa. Meanwhile, Shingen encountered difficulties of his own with the forces of Ieyasu Tokugawa, but emerged victorious as well. Having both been delayed, Kenshin and Shingen arrived at Sekigahara at the same time, where they would once again challenge each other. The Dragon of Echigo and the Tiger of Kai, the day to determine which would rule the land, had finally come.
May the heavens guide my sword to slay my nemesis.
Chapter 5, Showdown at Sekigahara.
Great Bisha Mountain, victory shall be ours.
Following the Battle of Sekigahara, Kenshin decided to fight alongside Shingen as allies. Determined to unify the land together, Kenshin and Shingen headed south to Kyūshū. When they arrived, they found that the fearsome Shimazu and remnants of the Oda were lying there in wait. Though it was the final battle for Japan's unification, the two great warlords felt as though they were riding off to one last friendly competition.
Great Bishamonten, god of war, I must fight alongside my nemesis. Kenshin's dream, conquest for Kyūshū. Great Bishamonten, victory shall be ours.
In his campaign to unify the land, Nobunaga formed an alliance with the Azai. The Azai agreed to this alliance on condition that they would not attack their longtime friends and allies, the Asakura. Nobunaga agreed, and as a show of good faith, gave his sister, Oichi, to Nagamasa Azai, the clan's lord, in marriage. Nagamasa loved Oichi dearly. Although Oichi did not fully trust her brother, she too came to love her new husband deeply. Many peaceful months passed, and eventually it seemed nothing would ever disturb their happiness. Then one day a report arrived that bandits had entered the Azai territory. Nagamasa prepared to hunt them down at once, and Oichi, concerned for her husband's safety, also reached for the closest weapon she could find.
I will repay his tenderness with my strength. Chapter 1, Village Rescue. I will never forget your love for me.
The bandits were quickly defeated by Nagamasa and his dear wife Oichi. However, the peace that followed would not last for long. Nobunaga broke his promise with the Azai and attacked the Asakura. Nagamasa was forced to decide whether to side with the Asakura or Nobunaga. Although he dearly loved Oichi, when he finished preparing for battle, he went to pursue the Oda army. The Oda were devastated by the Azai's unexpected attack and were forced to retreat from Kanegasaki. Nagamasa led his army in pursuit. Right by his side was Nobunaga's own sister, Oichi.
This is my destiny, to fight by the side of the man I love. Chapter 2, Retreat from Kanegasaki. I will never forget your love for me.
The Battle of Kanegasaki ended in favor of the Azai army. However, they were unable to kill Nobunaga during the battle. Once back in the capital, Nobunaga met with his ally Ieyasu Tokugawa, and the two declared war on the Azai and Asakura. The two alliances clashed at Anegawa. The Azai-Asakura forces were outnumbered nearly 2-1. Despite these grim conditions, Oichi swore to aid her beloved husband.
I will give my own life if it means protecting his. Chapter 3, Battle of Anegawa. I will never forget your love for me.
Thanks to Oichi, the Battle of Anegawa ended in favor of the Azai forces. Nagamasa, however, still wondered if he couldn't have found a better solution for handling his impulsive brother-in-law. The news of Nobunaga's defeat quickly spread. Those whom he had previously conquered now began to revolt against him. Surrounded, Nobunaga was in serious danger. Yoshikage, head of the Asakura, set out for battle so that he could personally deal the final blow to Nobunaga. He would ride to Mount Usa to launch his attack. Naturally, he asked Nagamasa and Oichi to assist him in this fight.
Be careful, Nagamasa. Do not let your kindness work against you. Chapter 4, Siege of Mount Usa. I will never forget your love for me.
The Battle of Mount Usa was a great success, but still, no one had managed to kill Nobunaga. Burning with desire for revenge against Nagamasa, Nobunaga quickly regrouped and subdued the rebellions within his own territory. Before long, he and a massive army had surrounded the Azai stronghold at Odani Castle. Knowing he had no chance to survive, Nagamasa ordered Oichi to return to her brother and fight with the Oda. As painful as this decision was, it was the only way he could save her life. Nobunaga, eager to make Nagamasa suffer as much as possible, then ordered Oichi to lead the attack on Odani Castle.
As I approach the battlefield, my heart is numb. Chapter 5, Siege of Odani Castle. If only I could forget your love for me.
The two women closest to Nobunaga Oda, his wife No and his younger sister Oichi, were both famous for their beauty. In fact, most people considered either one or the other to be the most beautiful woman in all the land. But which one was truly the more beautiful? That was a question that secretly ate up each one of them inside. With no way to find a definitive answer, the two magnificent women met at Shizugatake to personally settle the score.
This is a foolish quarrel. Everyone knows I'm more beautiful. Oichi's dream. Incident at Shizugatake. I will never forget your love for me.
Magoichi Saika was a lover of freedom and women, though not necessarily in that order. The leader of the Saika renegades, he lived a normal life amongst a world of chaos. It was the year 1570, and Nobunaga had set out to Omi to destroy Nagamasa Azai. Nagamasa requested the aid of Yoshikage Asakura from Echizen, and the two went to face the Oda at Anegawa. Meanwhile, Magoichi accepted a request from his old friend Hideyoshi to fight on the side of the Oda army.
Answering the call of a friend in need. Business as usual. Chapter 1, Battle of Anegawa. Good thing I brought plenty of bullets.
With Magoichi's help, the Battle of Anegawa was an easy win for the Oda. Magoichi bade his friend Hideyoshi farewell and went back to his homeland. But the life of a mercenary was a restless one. No sooner had he arrived home when a request came from the temple Honganji to fight against the Oda, the very same army he had just served. On his approach to Osaka, Magoichi discovered that the Oda were trying to create a naval blockade, preventing ships from entering the harbor. Clearly, this kind of power shift was what Magoichi's employers were hoping to avoid. In order to keep control of the harbor free, Magoichi engaged the Oda forces at Osaka Bay.
Yesterday's friend is today's enemy. Business as usual. Chapter 2, Battle of Osaka Bay. Good thing I brought plenty of bullets.
Magoichi successfully defeated the Oda army at Osaka Bay. Unfortunately, this victory only made life harder for him. Nobunaga was an unforgiving man, known to ruthlessly hunt down and destroy his enemies. Hoping for a chance to slay Nobunaga for good, Magoichi continued to assist Honganji with its rebellion against the Oda. But the temple's resources were slim, and it eventually surrendered. Disenchanted, Magoichi felt he had no more reason to fight. It was then that he received word that his own homeland was being attacked by the Oda forces.
This is insane! Hang in there, pals, I'm coming! Chapter 3, Assault on the Saika. Good thing I brought plenty of bullets.
Magoichi somehow managed to survive the Oda attacks. However, his homeland was burning and left in ruins. He had lost everything. The only thing Magoichi had remaining was his desire for revenge. Seething with anger, he headed for Honnoji, a temple in the capital where Nobunaga was lodged for the night. When he arrived, he found the temple in a state of chaos. Nobunaga's retainer, Mitsuhide Akechi, had risen in revolt.
Even if you escape, Mitsuhide, Nobunaga, I'll make sure you wind up dead. Chapter 4, Escape from Honnoji. Good thing I brought plenty of bullets.
Magoichi managed to safely escape from the Akechi forces. But now his home was gone, and Nobunaga was dead. He had nowhere left to go, and nothing left to do. Magoichi wandered for a few days, when suddenly he was found by a messenger who presented a letter to him. It was another request for aid from his old friend, Hideyoshi Toyotomi. Magoichi agreed to fight alongside Hideyoshi, and accompanied him to Yamazaki to do battle with the Akechi.
Good to be back on your side, Hideyoshi, and back to business as usual. Chapter 5, Battle of Yamazaki. I got plenty of bullets, but for you, Mitsuhide, I only need one.
Despite suffering serious wounds from the battle at Yamazaki, Magoichi managed to survive. After Hideyoshi took control of Japan, Magoichi bade him farewell and once again wandered the land. In time, however, Hideyoshi died, and control of the land fell into the hands of Ieyasu Tokugawa. By then, Magoichi had met Masamune Date, an ambitious young man whom he quickly grew to respect. The two became fast friends, and Magoichi agreed to fight alongside him. With their combined strength, the two men decided to challenge Ieyasu and seize control of Japan for themselves.
I may be down, but I've got one last dream in me yet. Magoichi's dream, Showdown at Sekigahara. Good thing I brought plenty of bullets.
Shingen Takeda, the renowned Tiger of Kai and stern disciple of Sun Tzu's Art of War, wished to create a new order for the land. Kenshin Uesugi, the renowned dragon of Echigo and self-proclaimed embodiment of the god of war, cared only for the heat of battle. These two powerful men had fought at Kawanakajima 3 times, but never had they been able to determine which one was greater. Determined to settle this rivalry so he could move on to bigger plans, Shingen advanced his forces to Kawanakajima for a 4th time.
The dragon and the tiger clash. Which side will destiny favor? Chapter 1. Battle of Kawanakajima. Mine is the path to fair and just rule.
The 4th battle of Kawanakajima resulted in victory for Shingen. However, he still felt unimpressed by his own performance. He decided to spend some time alone thinking over the events of the battle, so he secretly snuck out for a ride on his personal sailboat. Unbeknownst to Shingen, a group of pirates was passing through the same area in which he was sailing. Angered by their appearance in his territory, he grabbed his weapon and prepared to attack.
Those pirates sure caught me by surprise. I guess I'll have to return the favor. Chapter 2. Pirate Hunt. Mine is the path to fair and just rule.
Shingen made quick work of the pirates. It was clear now that the land was in dire straits. Shingen believed the only way to relieve the people of their suffering would be to seize the capital and establish a new government. Shingen mobilized his army, and word of his intentions soon spread. Unwilling to accept this, Ieyasu Tokugawa decided to stand against Shingen, even if it meant his own demise. When Shingen arrived at Mikatagahara, he saw the finest warriors under Ieyasu lining the battlefield, waiting for him to come forward.
I advance in the name of peace, fight in the name of honor. Chapter 3. Battle of Mikatagahara. Mine is the path to fair and just rule.
The Takeda were victorious at Mikatagahara. Shingen proceeded to head west through Mikawa towards the capital. Those who lived in the capital were terrified, unsure what to expect when the great army arrived. However, Shingen suddenly veered off course, heading home for Kai. In close pursuit of the Takeda was Nobunaga Oda, whose army was equipped with 3,000 rifles. As it turned out, Nobunaga had received word that Shingen had died during his march. Attempting to destroy the Takeda at their weakest, he raced after them, finally catching up at Nagashino.
For the sake of this land, I cannot die yet. Chapter 4. Battle of Nagashino. Mine is the path to fair and just rule.
Even 3,000 riflemen were no match for Shingen's knowledge of military tactics. As a result, Nobunaga and Ieyasu both met their demise at Nagashino. Shingen reached the capital and announced his new ideas for the rule of Japan. Little did he realize, an old enemy had been following close behind him. Kenshin, who was determined to finally defeat his nemesis, was quickly approaching the capital with his forces. Surprisingly, Shingen was overjoyed at the chance to fight his old enemy once more. He marched at once, and the two forces met at Sekigahara.
Welcome, dear nemesis. Let our battles come to an end here. Chapter 5, Showdown at Sekigahara. My path is almost complete.
Shingen defeated Kenshin at the Battle of Sekigahara. At long last, the two pledged an end to their rivalry and agreed to fight alongside one another as friends. Now they could both concentrate their efforts on unifying the land. Together, they set out for the southern island of Kyūshū. When they arrived, they found that the fearsome Shimazu and remnants of the Oda were lying there in wait. Though it was the final battle for Japan's unification, the two great warlords felt as though they were riding off to one last friendly competition.
Kenshin was an excellent enemy. He should make an even better friend. Shingen's dream, Conquest for Kyūshū. My path is almost complete.
Masamune Date, the young lord known as the One-Eyed Dragon, successfully defeated his neighboring enemies and quickly became the ruler of Oshu. It was a little late to try to unify the rest of the land under his banner, however. Hideyoshi Toyotomi had become the most powerful lord in Japan, and only two clans, the Hojo and the Date, remained independent of his rule. Realizing he was no match for Hideyoshi, Masamune agreed to serve him and set out to attack the Hojo clan's home at Odawara. Masamune's hope was that if he succeeded, he would be highly commended and permitted to continue ruling his home territory on Hideyoshi's behalf.
Sure, I'll serve Hideyoshi. But he sure is lucky he didn't run into me sooner. Chapter 1, Siege of Odawara Castle. Wait till you see how high this dragon can soar!
Masamune was victorious at Odawara, making Hideyoshi even more powerful than before. But eventually, Hideyoshi passed away from this world. Ieyasu Tokugawa decided to take control of the land for himself. In response to this, Mitsunari Ishida and Kanetsugu Naoe both swore to protect the Toyotomi name, and each began mobilizing his forces. Mitsunari attacked Sekigahara in the west, but was defeated in just one day. Kanetsugu, who had launched an attack on Hasedo Castle in the east, had no choice but to call off the attack and withdraw. Masamune saw that Ieyasu would become the next new ruler of the land. He set out to reinforce the troops at Hasedo Castle before Kanetsugu had time to regroup.
This land belongs to who I say it belongs! Chapter 2, Battle of Hasedo. Wait till you see how high this dragon can soar!
Masamune Date achieved victory for Ieyasu Tokugawa at Hasedo Castle. With this help, Ieyasu was able to take complete control of Japan. He decided to establish the city of Edo as his capital, and created a new government there. Masamune was well rewarded and promoted to the rank of senior lord for his deeds at Hasedo. However, Masamune still felt the need to prove himself. He had heard rumors that a band of pirates was settled nearby, so he went out alone, without his army, to do something about it.
These stupid criminals are a joke! This'll be my easiest fight yet! Chapter 3. Pirate Hunt. Wait till you see how high this dragon can soar!
Masamune successfully defeated the band of pirates. With this good deed, he was able to remain in a position of power above most of Ieyasu's other retainers. A few years later, Ieyasu decided that the remaining members of the Toyotomi clan, who had retained control of Osaka Castle, were still a threat to his dominance. He ordered Masamune to go stamp them out for good. In addition to their own warriors, the Toyotomi had many powerful friends. They summoned the assistance of Yukimura Sanada and Magoichi Saika to help them hold off Masamune's attack.
Go ahead, morons! Cry for help! It won't do you any good! Chapter 4. Osaka Campaign. Wait till you see how high this dragon can soar!
The Toyotomi were destroyed at Osaka. Among Ieyasu's remaining enemies, not one possessed the power to challenge his rule any longer. Among his allies, however, there was Masamune, a powerful warrior who could never be content as long as he served another. Masamune was leading his army home when he made a fateful decision. He would take his troops to Edo and fight his lord for control of the land. Ieyasu was unsurprised when he heard of the approaching army. Calmly, he readied his men for battle and set up camp at Mikatagahara to await Masamune's arrival.
You've leached off my ability long enough, Ieyasu! Chapter 5. Showdown at Mikatagahara. You didn't think I'd stay subservient forever, did you?
Ieyasu Tokugawa decided to seize Japan for himself. First, he intended to destroy the Uesugi in the east. They were led by Kanetsugu Naoe, a man who had long opposed him. However, before Ieyasu could reach his target, Kanetsugu's friend Mitsunari Ishida also began to march from the west in support. Ieyasu decided to turn his army around. Little did he realize, the Uesugi army was now also advancing on his position. The Uesugi reached Ieyasu first, and though caught off guard, he was able to fight them back. But now his army was weakened, and he still had Mitsunari Ishida to contend with.
Attack all you want, imbeciles! You'll never tear me down! Masamune's Dream. Battle of Sekigahara. You didn't think I'd stay subservient forever, did you?
Lady No was the wife of Nobunaga Oda. She was always by his side, closer to him than his own shadow. Her husband had sent a shockwave throughout Japan when he attacked and defeated the Imagawa clan at Okehazama. In response to this, other lords throughout the land unified themselves against Nobunaga. They called themselves the Anti-Nobunaga Coalition, and they had him surrounded on all sides. Katsuyori Takeda, leader of the coalition, made the first move, marching with the legendary Takeda cavalry to face off with Nobunaga at Nagashino. The upcoming battle would be a grueling one. Nobunaga was thankful that his beloved wife No was there at his side.
My life belongs to him. I will sacrifice it for him gladly. Chapter 1, Battle of Nagashino. To hell and back, if necessary.
With No's help, Nobunaga overcame the Takeda cavalry, and the Oda enjoyed victory at Nagashino. However, the resistance to Nobunaga's conquest would not end there. Nobunaga's chief officers, Mitsuhide and Hideyoshi, were struggling to hold off his enemies and lost several battles. The Oda army was faced with a desperate situation. Then, the anti-Nobunaga coalition tried a new tactic. They incited a group of bandits settled within Nobunaga's territory to riot, thus turning even the common people against him. When No received word that her husband's people were suffering at the hands of the bandits, she set out to the mountains by herself in order to stop them.
I cannot forgive those that torment my beloved, not even if I tried. Chapter 2, Village Rescue. To hell and back, if necessary.
No single-handedly destroyed the bandit settlement in the mountains. Thus, the coalition's plans had been foiled, but the Oda clan was far from safety. Kenshin Uesugi, the strongest of the Oda's many enemies, decided he would forever purge the land of the villain known as Nobunaga. Again, Mitsuhide and Hideyoshi did their best to protect their lord, but Nobunaga's forces were nearly decimated by Kenshin. What was left of his army was now trapped at Tedorigawa. Determined to get them out alive, Nobunaga and No personally marched to the rescue.
Those who have pledged loyalty to my beloved must not be let to fall. Chapter 3, Battle of Tedorigawa. To hell and back, if necessary.
Nobunaga and No stole victory from the Uesugi army, and by the day's end, Kenshin lay dead in the waters of Tedorigawa. The greatest remaining threat to the Oda clan was Katsuyori Takeda, Lord of Kai. Nobunaga called on his allies, the Tokugawa and Hojo clans, to create a formidable new army. Before long, he had defeated the Takeda as well. Katsuyori fled, seeking refuge with Masayuki Sanada at Ueda-Castle. There he welcomed remnants from the defeated Uesugi army into what was left of his own, and waited, for the Oda were again closing in to attack.
Pointless resistance, petty revenge. It's time for this misery to end. Chapter 4, Fall of the Takeda. To hell and back, if necessary.
Oda had now completely destroyed the Takeda and Uesugi, their greatest enemies in the east. Ready to deal with his opponents in the west, Nobunaga ordered his men to return to the capital. While he and No lodged at Honnoji, Nobunaga sent Mitsuhide to assist Hideyoshi, who was already leading a military campaign in Japan's west. However, Mitsuhide's reinforcements never reached Hideyoshi. After great deliberation, Mitsuhide decided to lead them toward Honnoji instead.
Mitsuhide has revealed his claws. I can't wait to show him mine. Chapter 5. Incident at Honnoji. To hell for good, if necessary.
Being Nobunaga's wife, Lady No had gotten to know her husband's younger sister, Oichi, very well, and she did not like her. Oichi was the type of girl who rarely spoke her mind. She disliked imposing on others, and always did what she was told. She was weak-willed and subservient, two qualities that annoyed No to no end. Even worse, many men throughout the land found those same qualities charming. An increasing number of people were even beginning to agree that Lady Oichi was the most beautiful woman in all Japan. No boiled into a rage whenever she thought of being outdone by her sister-in-law. One day, she decided to invite Oichi to meet her at Shizugatake. Oichi agreed, and No immediately began sharpening her claws.
The epitome of beauty. That is what it means to be the Demon King's wife. No's dream. Incident at Shizugatake. To hell for good, if necessary.
Hanzo Hattori was the leader of the Iga ninjas. Loyal only to Ieyasu Tokugawa, Lord of Mikawa, he was regarded as a devil by his enemies, and was often called Hanzo the Devil. In the year 1570, Ieyasu's ally Nobunaga Oda had come into bitter conflict with the united clans of the Azai and Asakura. With hopes of destroying them, Nobunaga marched toward Anegawa in the Azai's territory. Naturally, he asked for Ieyasu's assistance. When plotting the attack, Nobunaga decided his own army would face the Azai, who were few in number. This left Ieyasu to attack Asakura, who outnumbered his men threefold. Hanzo, undisturbed by the difficulty of the mission, armed himself and set out to defend his lord.
Death lurks close by, but the Master's orders are clear. Chapter 1. Battle of Anegawa. Always lurking, always in darkness.
Hanzo led the army of the Tokugawa to victory at Anegawa. But when he and Ieyasu returned home, they found that Ieyasu's own territory was in grave danger. Shingen Takeda was marching for the capital, and his path would soon bring him face to face with the Tokugawa. Ieyasu, in an effort to preserve his homeland and to prove his superior ability, set out to halt Shingen's advance. However, the clever Shingen was ready for him and caught the Tokugawa army in an ambush at Mikatagahara. Prepared to give up his own life to protect his master, Hanzo and the remainder of Ieyasu's soldiers rushed out to engage the enemy.
My life is my master's. I am but an obedient shadow. Chapter 2. Battle of Mikatagahara. always lurking, always in darkness.
With the help of the brave warriors who served him, Ieyasu survived the Battle of Mikatagahara. Shingen resumed his journey to the capital, but unexpectedly died of illness along the way. Despite this tremendous setback, Shingen's son, Katsuyori Takeda, was determined to continue his father's plans. He led the Takeda army to attack Ieyasu once again by surrounding Nagashino Castle. This time, Nobunaga rushed to assist his ally. At Nagashino, the legendary cavalry of the Takeda would face off against 3,000 riflemen in the service of the Oda. Again, Hanzo was there, though he was indifferent to the great showdown that was about to take place. He cared only for one thing, protecting his master.
Wars are not won with weapons, but with resolve. Chapter 3, Battle of Nagashino. Always lurking, always in darkness.
Hanzo served bravely in the Battle of Nagashino, and the combined forces of the Oda and Tokugawa were victorious. Afterward, Nobunaga made a stunning attempt to seize control of all Japan. His dreams, however, were cut short when he was betrayed and killed by Mitsuhide Akechi. Hideyoshi then succeeded in slaying Mitsuhide, and the contest for control of the land fell between him and Ieyasu. The armies of the two men clashed at Komaki-Nagakute. As always, Hanzo was with the Tokugawa army, ready to do whatever it took to claim Japan in the name of his lord.
Those who interfere with my master will meet death at my hands. Chapter 4, Battle of Komaki-Nagakute. Always lurking, always in darkness.
The Battle of Komaki-Nagakute ended in victory for the Tokugawa army. However, Hideyoshi was a clever diplomat and managed to convince the other lords to serve him despite his defeat. Frustrated, Ieyasu again attempted to crush Hideyoshi's superiority with sheer force. He allied himself with the Hojo and marched on Osaka Castle for another confrontation. Hanzo was ordered to weaken Hideyoshi's forces from within and used his prowess as a ninja to find a way inside the castle. Meanwhile, the Hojo sent their own ninja, Kotarō Fuma, to infiltrate the castle as well. For Kotarō, the primary incentive was not winning the battle, but competing against the famous Tokugawa ninja, Hanzo.
Darkness rules even over the land of the rising sun. Chapter 5, Siege of Osaka Castle. Always lurking, always in darkness.
After the incident at Honnoji and the demise of Nobunaga, Nobunaga's territories were divided amongst the remaining Oda retainers. Ieyasu claimed control of the land of Shinshu, while his allies, the Hojo, declared ownership of neighboring Joshu. However, Masayuki Sanada, who had ruled Shinshu before Nobunaga, believed the land rightfully belonged to him. Allying with the Uesugi, he set out to challenge Ieyasu's claim. Determined to stop Masayuki, Ieyasu began his attacks on Masayuki's stronghold of Ueda Castle. Once again, Hanzo was there, ready to die in defense of his lord.
Even great strategies dissolve in the pitch black of shadow. Hanzo's dream, Siege on Ueda-Castle. Always lurking, always in darkness.
Nobunaga saw potential in one of his lesser servants and decided to make him one of his officers. Eager to please Nobunaga, this former sandal-bearer demonstrated great ability and eventually came to command a campaign in the west. This man's name was Hideyoshi. However, it was while Hideyoshi was busy fighting in the western campaigns that Nobunaga would be betrayed and killed by Mitsuhide Akechi, one of his best and most trusted retainers. "I must kill Mitsuhide to avenge my lord's death," shouted Hideyoshi as he headed towards Yamazaki.
I shall avenge Lord Nobunaga. And then... Chapter 1. Battle of Yamazaki. Hey, it could happen.
Hideyoshi avenged his late lord's death at the Battle of Yamazaki. He then swore to create a new realm where he would bring happiness to the people. Nobunaga's younger sister, Oichi, was not pleased to hear of Hideyoshi's plans to rule the land and prepared to take action. She set out to attack, bringing the great Katsuie Shibata along to assist her. In order to realize his dreams, Hideyoshi headed for Shizugatake to meet them in battle.
Why, Oichi, you've gone to such trouble just to see me again. Chapter 2. Battle of Shizugatake. Hey, it could happen.
Hideyoshi barely managed to achieve victory, but defeated Katsuie Shibata and Oichi at Shizugatake. Next to challenge Hideyoshi for control of the land was none other than Nobunaga's old ally, Ieyasu Tokugawa of Mikawa. "I'm going to create a world where people can be happy," said Hideyoshi, and he was off to fight Ieyasu. The two clashed at Komaki-Nagakute in an effort to determine who would be the one to rule Japan.
I won't lose! Of course, the enemy is probably thinking the same thing. Chapter 3. Battle of Komaki-Nagakute. Hey, it could happen!
Hideyoshi was victorious at Komaki-Nagakute. Ieyasu Tokugawa had been defeated. In order to completely unify the land, Hideyoshi set out towards Kyūshū. However, Kyūshū was a land controlled by the fearful Yoshihiro Shimazu of Satsuma. In addition, the powerful Tachibana clan also resided in the lands of Kyūshū.
I'm not doing this just for me. I'm doing it for all Japan. Chapter 4. Conquest for Kyūshū. Hey, it could happen.
Hideyoshi succeeded in recruiting both the Shimazu and Tachibana. With Kyūshū now his, the only remaining threat to his dreams were the Hojo in Kanto and the Date in Oshu. Hideyoshi decided to subjugate the Hojo and assembled all of his retainers to attack the Hojo fortification known as Odawara Castle. During this campaign, Masamune Date surrendered to Hideyoshi and agreed to serve him by attacking the Hojo.
One last fight and Japan will be all mine! This is easier than I thought. Chapter 5, Siege of Odawara Castle. Hey, it could happen!
Odawara Castle had fallen, and the Lord of Oshu, Masamune, returned home. Hideyoshi had finally unified the land. But in time, Hideyoshi died, and the land was again swept into chaos. It was during this time that Ieyasu Tokugawa mobilized his forces. Determined to protect the Toyotomi, Mitsunari Ishida engaged Ieyasu at Sekigahara. Luck seemed to be in Ieyasu's favor. However, something strange occurred within the Toyotomi army. Hideyoshi Toyotomi himself was leading the way. It was all a part of his scheme to weed out those who were not loyal to him.
Why do things always fall apart when I'm not around? Hideyoshi's dream. Battle of Sekigahara. Okay, maybe this is just a bit much.
Tadakatsu Honda was one of Ieyasu Tokugawa's finest warriors. Armed with his great spear, called the Tonbo Giri, he was a formidable warrior on any battlefield. In the year 1570, Ieyasu and his ally, Nobunaga Oda, became bitter enemies with the Azai and Asakura. Ieyasu joined his ally Nobunaga in the invasion of the Azai territory of Anegawa. While the Oda forces engaged the smaller Azai clan, Ieyasu was forced to deal with the Asakura, who had an army 3 times the size of his own. Despite these seemingly insurmountable odds, Tadakatsu showed no signs of fear or trepidation.
When a true warrior enters the battlefield, enemy numbers mean little. Chapter 1. Battle of Anegawa. Only conflict remains.
It was due to Tadakatsu's mighty strength that the Battle of Anegawa was won. Some said his skills were comparable to that of the legendary Zhang Fei of ancient China. After returning to his homeland, Ieyasu found himself once again in danger. The Tiger of Kai, Shingen Takeda, was now on the move. Ieyasu, to prove how brave a warrior from Mikawa was, set out to stop Shingen's journey towards the capital. However, Shingen had anticipated such a move and ambushed Ieyasu at Mikatagahara. Tadakatsu rose once again, this time to fight Shingen and protect his lord.
A samurai has but 2 options in battle, to live or to die. Chapter 2, Battle of Mikatagahara. Only conflict remains.
Ieyasu managed to survive the Battle of Mikatagahara. Later, Shingen died due to illness, before he could reach the capital. Soon thereafter, Nobunaga tried to take control of the land, but was assassinated at Honnoji. Following Nobunaga's death, Ieyasu made an alliance with the Hojo. They moved their forces into the land of Shinshu to make it their own. In response, Masayuki Sanada and the Uesugi army rose to stop them. The battle between Tadakatsu and Masayuki was to take place at Ueda Castle.
No strategy can defend a warrior as well as his own might. Chapter 3, Siege of Ueda-Castle. Only conflict remains.
The Battle of Ueda Castle ended in victory for the Tokugawa army, who then established peace with the Sanada. Eventually, Hideyoshi Toyotomi, who had avenged Nobunaga's death and seized the land, died himself. It was at this moment that Ieyasu decided it was time for him to rule the land. Mitsunari Ishida opposed this and mobilized his troops to stop Ieyasu. Mitsunari's western army and Ieyasu's eastern army clashed at Kusegawa. This battle was to determine who would rule the land. With his cunning tactics, the commander of the western army, Sakon Shima, was poised to eliminate the eastern army once and for all.
A warrior's greatest battle is always his next battle. Chapter 4, Battle of Kusegawa. Only conflict remains.
The Battle of Kusegawa was won by the valiant efforts of Tadakatsu. The Eastern Army wished to finalize their victory, while the Western Army hoped to avenge their earlier loss. The two forces gathered at Sekigahara to determine who would emerge victorious. This would be the last battle for Tadakatsu and his beloved spear, the Tonbogiri.
The loss of one's blade pains like the loss of a friend. Chapter 5, Battle of Sekigahara. Only the final conflict remains.
Amidst the chaos, some of the most powerful warriors in the land gathered for a little competition. The free-spirited fighter Keiji Maeda, the master swordsman Musashi Miyamoto, the elusive and enigmatic Kotarō Fuma, and the legendary warrior Tadakatsu Honda. These mighty warriors strove to prove once and for all who the best warrior in the land truly was. It was a battle the likes of which had never been seen before in history.
Might perfects the samurai perfects not might. Tadakatsu's dream, Tournament of Champions. Only the final conflict remains.
Ina, the daughter of Tadakatsu Honda, also served Ieyasu Tokugawa alongside her father. The land had nearly been unified by Hideyoshi Toyotomi. His remaining enemies were the Hojo in the Kanto region and Masamune Date in Oshu. Seeing that he would not stand a chance against Hideyoshi, Masamune quickly surrendered and offered his allegiance to him. Now only the Hojo remained at Odawara Castle. Hideyoshi ordered all of his retainers, including Ieyasu and Ina, to go and attack the Hojo.
Those who oppose Japan's unification must answer to my bow. Chapter 1. Siege of Odawara Castle. May my arrows guide us forward.
The Hojo were destroyed at Odawara Castle. Hideyoshi had finally united the land in his name. Ieyasu was given the Kanto region as a reward for his efforts. However, the Kanto region was completely new to the Tokugawa. News of the great Ieyasu still had not reached the area, and the territory was plagued by bandits. The bandits pillaged the local villages and put the people through a great deal of suffering. Ieyasu ordered Ina to put an end to them and return peace to the village.
I have no patience for baseless villainy. I'll deal with these bandits myself. Chapter 2. Village Rescue. May my arrows guide us forward.
Ina rid the territory of the bandits and brought peace to the east. Sometime thereafter, Hideyoshi died. Ieyasu, believing he would maintain the peace, set out to take over ruling the land. Opposed to this, Mitsunari Ishida mobilized his armies to face Ieyasu. Mitsunari's western army and Ieyasu's eastern army clashed at Kusegawa. The western army's Sakon Shima used his brilliant tactics to inflict great damage to the eastern army. Ina saw this and quickly moved to assist them.
I will not allow our enemies to return the land to chaos! Chapter 3. Battle of Kusegawa. May my arrows guide us forward!
The Battle of Kusegawa ended with Ina leading the Eastern Army to success. The Eastern Army then wished to finalize their victory, while the Western Army hoped to avenge their earlier loss. The two forces gathered at Sekigahara to determine who was truly superior. Both Ina and her father Tadakatsu took to the battlefield to participate in the greatest battle of the time.
The sooner this foolishness ends, the better. The Tokugawa will rule Japan. Chapter 4. Battle of Sekigahara. May my arrows guide us forward.
The Eastern Army was victorious at Sekigahara. Ieyasu Tokugawa became the undisputed ruler of the land, and he soon established his shogunate in Edo. However, the Toyotomi refused to obey the Tokugawa and still remained at Osaka Castle. A few years later, Ieyasu would attack Osaka Castle, believing it was the only way to assure peace throughout the land. Ina also believed in this and joined the battle to bring down the castle.
This has gone on long enough. Let it end here. Chapter 5. Osaka Campaign. Let this be the last time we march into battle.
The Battle of Sekigahara, the fight between East and West, had begun. Ina's husband, Nobuyuki Sanada, fought with the Eastern Army. However, his father-in-law, Masayuki, and brother-in-law, Yukimura, fought on the side of the West. On his way to Sekigahara, Masayuki wished to visit his grandchild and stopped to see Ina at Numata Castle. Masayuki was a brilliant tactician, and this was all a part of his scheme to take over the castle. However, the clever Ina sensed this beforehand and had already prepared her bow in its defense.
If my own family wishes to fight me, then a fight they shall get. Ina's dream, defense of Numata Castle. Let this be the last time we march into battle.
Ieyasu Tokugawa, lord of the lands of Mikawa and Totomi, had originally served Yoshimoto Imagawa, the lord of Suruga. After the Imagawa were defeated at Okehazama by Nobunaga Oda, Ieyasu declared himself independent and pledged his allegiance to Nobunaga. In the year 1570, Nobunaga was attacked by his brother-in-law Nagamasa Azai. Nobunaga wanted to destroy Nagamasa, who had gained in strength by allying with the Asakura clan. To even the odds, he asked for assistance from his own ally, Ieyasu. When planning the upcoming attack, Nobunaga chose to lead his own army against the smaller Azai clan. Meanwhile, Ieyasu was ordered to lead his own forces against the Asakura, who outnumbered him 3-1.
Now is the time to endure with a pride befitting the men of Mikawa. Chapter 1, Battle of Anegawa. For the future, one step at a time.
Word of the allied Oda and Tokugawa victory at Anegawa soon spread across the land. When the news reached Shingen Takeda, he realized the danger these two men presented and decided to mobilize his army as well. Ieyasu saw Shingen's move as a chance to prove his strength, independent of his alliance with Nobunaga. He gathered his men and raced to halt the advancing Takeda army. However, the clever Shingen had anticipated a move such as this, and successfully lured Ieyasu into the open fields of Mikatagahara. There, waiting Takeda soldiers ambushed an unprepared Ieyasu. It would take all of Ieyasu's might to escape this danger.
My foolish pride has led me right into the jaws of death. Chapter 2, Battle of Mikatagahara. For the future, one step at a time.
Ieyasu managed to survive the attack at Mikatagahara. Soon after, Shingen Takeda died due to illness. Time passed, and Nobunaga was unexpectedly assassinated by one of his most trusted retainers, Mitsuhide Akechi. With these two fearsome lords dead, Ieyasu became one of the two most powerful men in Japan. The other was Hideyoshi, another Oda retainer who had quickly avenged Nobunaga's death by killing Mitsuhide. But only one of these men could eventually rule the land. To settle their rivalry, Ieyasu challenged Hideyoshi to a battle at Komaki-Nagakute.
I have seen our future. For now, I must keep pushing forward. Chapter 3, Battle of Komaki-Nagakute. For peace, one step at a time.
The Battle of Komaki-Nagakute was won by the Tokugawa. However, Ieyasu believed that if he killed Hideyoshi now, the land would be thrown back into a state of chaos. Therefore, Ieyasu let Hideyoshi rule Japan for the time being. Hideyoshi then went on to conquer the southern island of Kyūshū. That left only two clans in the entire land who still defied him. They were the Hojo in Kanto and the Date in Oshu. In the year 1590, Hideyoshi ordered powerful men from throughout his domain to attack Odawara Castle, home of the Hojo. Ieyasu also joined the fight and rode to attack Odawara from the east.
Every step taken must be taken towards peace. Chapter 4, Siege of Odawara Castle. For peace, one step at a time.
The great Odawara Castle fell without trouble. Afterward, the Date clan agreed to serve Hideyoshi, and the land was finally united. However, Hideyoshi's Japan would not last forever. Hideyoshi died of natural causes, and at once the land was plunged back into a state of chaos. Now, Ieyasu knew that his time had finally come. He mobilized his men and set out to create a new nation of his own. However, Hideyoshi had a loyal retainer by the name of Mitsunari Ishida, who refused to let power slip from the hands of the Toyotomi clan. To counter Ieyasu's forces from the east, Mitsunari called for help from lords who lived in the west. The two men, each with a vast army under his control, clashed at Sekigahara.
The deaths we suffer today will ensure peace for the lives of the future. Chapter 5, Battle of Sekigahara. For peace, one step at a time.
The Battle of Sekigahara was won by the Eastern Army. Ieyasu Tokugawa attained the title of shogun and established a new government. This time, the land was unified for good and finally came to know peace. Nonetheless, remnants of the Toyotomi clan still refused to admit defeat. They gathered together all the help they could find and decided to make one last stand at Osaka Castle. Frustrated, Ieyasu prepared his army once more to deal with the rebellion. If he didn't affirm his power here, he feared that everything he had worked so hard to earn could suddenly be lost.
The road has been long and dangerous, but the goal is just up ahead. Chapter 6, Osaka Campaign. For peace, one step at a time.
After Hideyoshi's death, Ieyasu decided that he was the rightful successor to unify Japan and finally achieve peace. Kanetsugu Naoe, however, thought differently. Eager to stop Ieyasu at any cost, he defiantly mobilized the Uesugi army, which was now under his control. Meanwhile, Kanetsugu's good friend Mitsunari Ishida mobilized his troops in the west. Ieyasu quickly pulled his forces back so he could deal with Mitsunari and ordered Masamune Date to engage Kanetsugu. However, Kanetsugu ignored Masamune and continued to pursue Ieyasu. With enemies approaching from his front and rear, Ieyasu was in a very dangerous situation.
Come what may, I must never lose sight of my dreams of peace. Ieyasu's dream, last stand against Ieyasu. For peace, one step at a time.
Mitsunari Ishida was Hideyoshi's chief officer and excelled at establishing supply lines. It was Mitsunari who enabled Hideyoshi to lead his marches with such speed. In the year 1582, Hideyoshi's master Nobunaga Oda was assassinated by Mitsuhide Akechi at Honnoji. Upon hearing this news, Hideyoshi reacted immediately, leading his army out from the west in search of the man who had slain his lord. He eventually caught up with the Akechi forces at Yamazaki. As usual, Mitsunari was right there by his side.
He who avenges Nobunaga shall become the next ruler of Japan. Chapter 1. Battle of Yamazaki. All is guided by reason.
With Mitsunari's assistance, Hideyoshi won the Battle of Yamazaki. Nobunaga Oda's death avenged, Hideyoshi was now free to become successor to the Oda clan. However, Nobunaga's sister, Oichi, had never liked Hideyoshi. She was now married to Katsuie Shibata, another powerful Oda retainer. At her assertion, Katsuie led his men to challenge Hideyoshi at Shizugatake. Also on the battlefield that day was Masanori Fukushima, a young officer who hoped to make a name for himself by slaying Hideyoshi's officer Mitsunari, whom he detested greatly.
I pity those who resist the inevitable future. Chapter 2. Battle of Shizugatake. All is guided by reason.
Hideyoshi defeated Katsuie Shibata and Oichi at Shizugatake and returned to his duties as Nobunaga's successor. However, it wasn't long before a new challenge to his rule presented itself. This time, Nobunaga's son, Nobukatsu, had declared himself as Nobunaga's rightful heir. He joined forces with Nobunaga's former ally Ieyasu Tokugawa of Mikawa and swore to oppose Hideyoshi. Hideyoshi found himself fighting once again to defend his position as head of the Oda clan. And once again, Mitsunari was there with him, ready to die in order to defend the life and career of his master.
Ieyasu wishes to succeed Nobunaga, but the age of the Oda has come to an end. Chapter 3. Battle of Komaki-Nagakute. All is guided by reason.
Hideyoshi finally affirmed his place as ruler of the Oda clan when he defeated Nobukatsu and Ieyasu. With internal struggles aside, he went on to conquer Kyūshū by defeating the Shimazu and the Tachibana clans. Soon after, he won the allegiance of Masamune Date in the north. This left him with only one threat to his power remaining, and that was the Hojo clan in eastern Odawara. Hideyoshi mobilized a large army intending to completely break the Hojo's spirit. For the attack, he called forth powerful retainers from throughout his enormous domain. The Hojo knew they stood little chance, but held fast, swearing to fight to the very end.
The people of this land are correct to submit to Hideyoshi. And yet, Chapter 4. Siege of Odawara Castle. All is guided by reason.
Odawara Castle fell, and rule of all Japan fell to Hideyoshi. But after a time, Hideyoshi died, and the land was once more thrown back into chaos. Ieyasu Tokugawa had been waiting for this moment and decided to make his move. Mitsunari, desperate to keep control of Japan for the Toyotomi, stood up to face the Tokugawa and protect his former master's clan. Mitsunari's friend, Kanetsugu Naoe, volunteered to help and led his army to distract Ieyasu. Once Ieyasu turned to face Kanetsugu, Mitsunari also marched, aiming to strike the Tokugawa army's rear flank. Ieyasu quickly realized he was being lured into a trap and turned his army around a second time. Now he was heading straight for Mitsunari again, as he had originally intended.
Victory today will earn us victory in the greater battle yet to come. Chapter 5, Battle of Kusegawa. All is guided by reason.
Mitsunari's Western army scored a victory at Kusegawa, driving back Ieyasu. Now, determined to finish off the Eastern army once and for all, Mitsunari surrounded Ieyasu's men at Sekigahara. The Western army held the advantage with more troops and control of the high ground. Despite this, Mitsunari was unsure if he was making the right move. Hideyoshi had also won control of Japan by leading an army of superior numbers. However, his methods had failed to win him the respect of his peers, and thus his clan's rule was ultimately threatened. If Mitsunari simply repeated the mistakes made by Hideyoshi, would he be doomed to suffer the same fate?
Reason settled this land once, and shall do so again. I think. Chapter 6, Battle of Sekigahara. All is guided by honor.
Mitsunari was victorious at Sekigahara, but Ieyasu still managed to escape to Edo. Furious that Ieyasu had escaped his grasp, Mitsunari led his troops east in pursuit, knowing that the Toyotomi clan would never be safe until Ieyasu was gone. Accompanying him were his friends Kanetsugu Naoe and Yukimura Sanada. Together they hoped to hunt down Ieyasu in Edo and finish him off for good. Meanwhile, Ieyasu called for help from Masamune Date of Oshu. He was determined to defend his city and drive off the Western army at all costs.
Deep in my heart, I know I must resist the inevitable. Mitsunari's dream, Edo Campaign. All is guided by honor.
Nagamasa Azai ruled over the land of Omi. He was married to Nobunaga Oda's younger sister, Oichi, making him a close ally to the Oda. Nagamasa's family was also closely tied to another clan named Asakura. When Nobunaga decided to attack the Asakura, Nagamasa was thrust into a very difficult position. Ultimately, Nagamasa felt it was his duty to help the Asakura and attacked Nobunaga from behind, effectively ending his relations with the Oda. Angry at Nagamasa for his betrayal, Nobunaga sent his forces to Omi. With his wife Oichi by his side, Nagamasa went to face Nobunaga at Anegawa.
Forgive me, Oichi, but I must fight.
Chapter 1, Battle of Anegawa.
My faith shall never falter!
The Azai achieved victory at Anegawa. However, Nagamasa was still torn between love and honor. When news spread of Nobunaga's defeat, people throughout his domain began to revolt. Nobunaga soon found himself surrounded by enemies. The head of the Asakura clan, Yoshikage, saw this as the perfect chance to finally rid the land of Nobunaga. He readied his army and prepared to attack. Yoshikage asked Nagamasa to lead the Azai army to Mount Usa. If he were to meet Nobunaga there, his orders were to kill him on sight.
Someday Nobunaga will understand. I'm sure of it. Chapter 2. Siege of Mount Usa.
My faith shall never falter!
Nagamasa Azai was unable to defeat Nobunaga at Mount Usa, let alone kill him. There was now no one Nobunaga wanted dead more than Nagamasa Azai. As soon as he was able, he led the Oda army to Nagamasa's home at Odani Castle. This time, Nagamasa had no choice. If he failed to kill Nobunaga again, it would be at the cost of his own life. With his mind filled with thoughts of his wife Oichi, Nagamasa prepared for this decisive battle.
Oichi, I must fight your brother. I must kill the Demon King.
Chapter 3. Defense of Odani Castle.
My faith shall never falter.
By defeating Nobunaga at Odani Castle, Nagamasa didn't just save his own life. He also became a formidable force in the struggle to rule Japan. However, this also made him a much more obvious target for other ruling lords. If killing Nobunaga was a clear indicator of one's strength, then killing the man who killed Nobunaga was an even greater one. Ieyasu Tokugawa, a longtime ally to the Oda, decided he would be the one to take up that challenge. He marched his army to Shizugatake, demanding vengeance for his murdered friend.
I know it's wrong to fight my own brother. Oichi, what should I... Chapter 4. Showdown at Shizugatake.
My faith shall never falter!
Nagamasa defeated Ieyasu and other remnants of the Oda clan at Shizugatake. Unexpected though it was, he unified the land under the Azai name. But despite his fantastic success, there was one thing that still weighed heavily on his heart. He had not forgiven himself for betraying the love of his life, Oichi, when he sided with the Asakura clan to attack her brother. The decision had been a difficult one, nearly impossible. And the more he thought about it, the more it seemed that everything that had happened since then was nothing but an unbelievable dream.
Everything is clear now. Honor, love, all is possible. Chapter 5. Battle of Kanegasaki.
I uphold my honor in the name of love.
Nagamasa decided to serve Nobunaga and defeated the Asakura at Kanegasaki. He had now become one of Nobunaga's most trusted retainers and began contributing to the Oda's quest for domination. Nobunaga placed Nagamasa in charge of protecting the east and went back to Kyoto to begin planning a new government. He sent Hideyoshi out west with most of his army to subdue the enemies he had there. It was the perfect opportunity for those who wished to turn the tides of war back against Nobunaga. Shingen Takeda amassed a huge army by allying with the Uesugi and the Date. Together, they headed towards Sekigahara to divide Nobunaga's territory amongst themselves.
Honor is with me. Nobunaga's enemies, fear the strength of Nagamasa. Nagamasa's dream. Showdown at Sekigahara. I uphold my honor in the name of love.
Sakon Shima was a brilliant strategist who once served Shingen Takeda at a young age. In the year 1582, Mitsuhide Akechi assassinated Nobunaga Oda at Honnoji and tried to assume control of the land. Afterward, Mitsuhide contacted the Tsutsui clan, where Sakon resided at the time, to request that they add their strength to his forces. Sakon, however, believed that the next to rule Japan would not be Mitsuhide, but Hideyoshi. He convinced his lord to assist Hideyoshi's army, and soon Sakon found himself standing against Mitsuhide at Yamazaki.
You want to catch your enemy off guard? Then just do the impossible. Chapter 1. Battle of Yamazaki. Want to learn something? Just watch me.
Just as Sakon anticipated, Hideyoshi won the Battle of Yamazaki, and Mitsuhide's reign lasted for a mere 11 days. Soon thereafter, Hideyoshi defeated his other rivals within the Oda clan, earning the coveted position of Nobunaga's successor. In hopes of unifying the entire land, Hideyoshi then set out for Kyūshū. Among the officers in Hideyoshi's camp were his most trusted retainer Mitsunari Ishida and the great strategist Sakon Shima.
Some say I don't belong with Mitsunari, but what do they know? Chapter 2. Conquest for Kyūshū. Want to learn something? Just watch me.
Hideyoshi won the loyalty of both the Shimazu and the Tachibana clans, thus conquering Kyūshū. All that stood in his way to complete the unification of Japan was the Hojo clan in Kanto and the Date clan in Oshu. In an effort to completely destroy the Hojo in a single blow, Hideyoshi sent a massive army to attack their home, Odawara Castle, from two directions. Both Sakon and Mitsunari were among those attacking from the west.
This should settle the chaos, at least for now, anyway. Chapter 3. Siege of Odawara Castle. Want to learn something? Just watch me.
Odawara Castle fell to Hideyoshi and control of the land went to his clan, the Toyotomi. However, the Toyotomi's rule only lasted as long as Hideyoshi did. After his death, Ieyasu Tokugawa built a formidable army in the west and moved to steal control of Japan for himself. The Toyotomi were forced to defend themselves. To help win the advantage, Sakon requested permission to lead an ambush at Kusegawa, which, if successful, would stunt Ieyasu's advance. Permission was granted, and Sakon marched, fully aware that the future of Japan was hanging in the balance.
My lord wants to see some action? I won't disappoint. Chapter 4, Battle of Kusegawa. Want to learn something? Just watch me.
Thanks to Sakon's brilliant strategy, the Western Army won a decisive victory at Kusegawa. They immediately used this momentum to press the Eastern Army further, until the two forces clashed again at Sekigahara. Although the Western Army outnumbered the enemy and held the high ground, Sakon sensed unrest among some of the officers. He suddenly began to worry about how the upcoming battle would play out.
This is worth doing. Maybe a little too much so. Chapter 5, Battle of Sekigahara. Want to learn something? Just watch me.
The Tsutsui clan was overrun, leaving Sakon Shima without a master. Hoping to learn more of strategy, he returned to his old lord Shingen Takeda and accompanied him on his quest to seize the capital. Along the way, the Takeda army had to pass a castle owned by Ieyasu Tokugawa. The castle was near Mikatagahara, where Shingen cleverly set an ambush. When Ieyasu came out to attack, he was trapped. Seeing their lord in danger, the remainder of Ieyasu's soldiers raced out of the castle. A full-scale battle had begun.
I'm gonna soak up Lord Shingen's strategies like a sponge. Sakon's dream. Battle of Mikatagahara. Want to learn something? Just watch me.
Yoshihiro Shimazu was the second son of the powerful Shimazu clan on the island of Kyūshū. The Shimazu had come to this land long ago and were both feared and respected by many. The Shimazu had conquered the majority of Kyūshū, mostly through their skill at luring their enemies into unexpected ambushes. Their closest rival, the Tachibana, were now almost completely destroyed. It was at this time that Hideyoshi Toyotomi came to Kyūshū in his attempt to unify Japan. He allied himself with the head of the Tachibana, the lady warrior Ginchiyo, and prepared to take on the Shimazu.
You want me to give in? We can at least fight first, right?
Chapter 1, Conquest for Kyūshū.
One gamble after another. That's life.
In their first battle, Yoshihiro succeeded in defeating Hideyoshi. However, one victory was hardly enough to drive back the ambitious ruler of most of Japan. Eventually, Hideyoshi became accustomed to the features of the island, and soon after, his superior numbers and vast resources quickly brought the Shimazu to their knees. With Kyūshū subjugated, there were only two forces remaining that were powerful enough to challenge Hideyoshi's control: the Hojo clan in Kanto and the Date clan in Oshu. In an effort to completely destroy the Hojo in a single blow, Hideyoshi sent a massive army to attack their home, Odawara Castle from two directions. The figure of Yoshihiro could be seen among those attacking from the east.
I may be living on borrowed time, but at least I can earn my keep. Chapter 2, Siege of Odawara Castle. One gamble after another. That's life.
The Hojo were destroyed, and Japan was united at last. Having served in the attack, Yoshihiro now fully understood Hideyoshi's cleverness in battle. He gave up his own dreams of one day ruling the land. Before long, Hideyoshi, the one who had unified Japan, passed away. Soon thereafter, Ieyasu Tokugawa and Mitsunari Ishida became bitter enemies. Warriors throughout the land began to take sides with either Ieyasu's eastern army or Mitsunari's western army. Yoshihiro believed that if Mitsunari was victorious, he would still have a chance of eventually taking the land for himself. He joined the western army with high hopes that his gamble might eventually pay off.
Ieyasu may be the smart bet, but I prefer to ride the dark horse. Chapter 3, Battle of Kusegawa. One gamble after another. That's life.
The Battle of Kusegawa ended in victory for the Western Army. However, in the battle that followed at Sekigahara, the Western Army suffered from multiple betrayals among its own men. The Western Army crumbled and countless warriors were cut down. Despite this, Yoshihiro was not in the least bit disturbed. No matter how thrilling it was to win a battle, a losing battle was always more exciting. And to turn a losing battle into a winning battle, that was the most thrilling of all. Surrounded by the bodies of his dead comrades, Yoshihiro could only think of sweet victory, which he could still make out gleaming in the distance.
The end of a battle is never known until the battle ends. Chapter 4, Struggle at Sekigahara. One gamble after another. That's life.
Yoshihiro's incredible will to fight led the Western Army to victory at Sekigahara. Mitsunari ordered the pursuit of Ieyasu as he fled with the rest of his forces and eventually drove him back to his base in Edo. Yoshihiro continued to follow Mitsunari and made his way with the Western Army to Edo as well. However, on the eve of what was meant to be the final battle, Yoshihiro's own ambitions continued to swell.
The stakes are high, almost as high as my heartbeat. Chapter 5, Siege of Edo Castle. The last gamble is the greatest of all.
After the death of Hideyoshi, Ieyasu began his campaign to conquer the land. However, Mitsunari stood against him, determined to preserve rule for the Toyotomi clan. Ieyasu's eastern army and Mitsunari's western army clashed at Sekigahara. Although the western army possessed the high ground, they were sorely weakened when Hideaki Kobayakawa defected to the east. They were now faced with a very critical situation. However, another surprise occurred when Yukimura Sanada appeared to assist his struggling allies at Sekigahara. He struck the Eastern Army from behind, giving the Western Army new hope. The Western Army was outnumbered, but their fighting spirit was restored. Cheering, they rushed out to win the day from Ieyasu in any way they could.
I don't mind the unpredictable. That's what's kept me going so long. Yoshihiro's dream. Battle of Sekigahara. One gamble after another. That's life.
Ginchiyo Tachibana was the daughter of Dosetsu Tachibana, a powerful lord of Kyūshū. As his only child, she had been raised like a son, and following his death, she succeeded him as head of the Tachibana clan. At the time of her succession, the Tachibana were already losing territory to their rivals, the Shimazu. And although Ginchiyo fought many battles against them, eventually her clan was pushed to the brink of annihilation. However, things changed when Hideyoshi Toyotomi, conqueror of most of Japan's main island, came down from the north. Hideyoshi sided with the Tachibana. Backed with fresh reinforcements and supplies, Ginchiyo led a new charge to reclaim her clan's lost dominance.
The Shimazu are my lifelong enemy. I will show them no mercy.
Chapter 1. Conquest for Kyūshū.
Onward to unconditional victory.
Hideyoshi defeated the Shimazu, and the island of Kyūshū was brought into his domain. Thankful for Ginchiyo's help, he praised her ability highly, and the Tachibana name became famous throughout the land. A few years later, only two forces remained not yet under Hideyoshi's control. They were the Hojo clan in Kanto and the Date clan in Oshu. Hideyoshi wanted to show the Hojo how powerful he had become, and gathered all of his strongest retainers to attack their main castle in Odawara. Ginchiyo was among them, marching from the east. In the midst of the battle, a messenger appeared to report the arrival of Masamune Date. The powerful young lord of the north wished an audience with Hideyoshi so he could express his desire to serve him.
I shall follow the path that I believe most just, wherever it may lead me. Chapter 2. Siege of Odawara Castle. Onward to unconditional victory!
Odawara Castle fell to Hideyoshi, and control of the land went to his clan, the Toyotomi. However, the Toyotomi's rule only lasted as long as Hideyoshi did. After his death, the scramble to seize control of Japan was reignited. In the year 1600, the land's most powerful lords were divided into two forces, an eastern army under Ieyasu Tokugawa and a western army under Mitsunari Ishida. Ginchiyo remained with the western army along with her sworn enemy, Yoshihiro of the Shimazu. The two were ordered to stand together against the Eastern Army at Kusegawa. Kusegawa was where the two great armies would first meet. Whichever side could win the river would have the advantage in the greater battle that was yet to come.
Honor in battle is defined by the victors. Chapter 3. Battle of Kusegawa. Onward to unconditional victory!
The Western Army was victorious at the Battle of Kusegawa. Not wanting to lose momentum, Mitsunari wasted no time and continued to push his army forward. The Eastern Army was eager to redeem themselves and headed towards Osaka, where they hoped to capture Hideyoshi's son and heir to the Toyotomi throne, Hideyori. Despite objections from his generals, Mitsunari continued pursuit. However, this was just what Ieyasu wanted. He made camp at Sekigahara and prepared to assault Mitsunari's forces the moment they arrived. Discontent toward Mitsunari's behavior ran rampant in the Western army. Ginchio paid no attention to this and simply prepared for the oncoming battle.
To a Tachibana, the only victory worth winning is absolute victory. Chapter 4, Battle of Sekigahara. Onward to unconditional victory!
The Battle of Sekigahara was won by the Western Army, and Ieyasu fled back to Edo. However, after the battle, Yoshihiro left the ranks of the Western Army and marched his troops towards Osaka. It was his intention to capture Hideyori and ultimately eliminate both Mitsunari and Ieyasu. In addition, Masanori Fukushima and others who were loyal to the Toyotomi chose to side with Yoshihiro. Swearing to take out her longtime enemy once and for all, Ginchio set out with Mitsunari to stop Yoshihiro's ambitions.
Shimazu, is this the path that you believe most just? Chapter 5, Pursuit of Yoshihiro. Onward from the depths of the heart.
Yoshihiro was captured at Yamazaki and defeated. The Western Army turned its focus back towards Ieyasu in the east. Mitsunari's friends Kanetsugu Naoe and Yukimura Sanada heard the news and set forth with their armies to assist him. Meanwhile, Ieyasu, who had allied himself with Masamune Date, Lord of Oshu, waited for his enemies to come to him in Edo. Once again, Ginchio was there to fight with the Western Army. When this battle was finished, it was her hope that the land would finally know a much-needed peace.
My path is my own. My honor is my own. Ginchio's Dream, Edo Campaign. Onward from the depths of the heart.
Kenshin Uesugi and Shingen Takeda were two of the strongest lords during Japan's feudal era. Bitter enemies, the two had fought each other 3 times but were still unable to determine who was superior. In the year 1561, they brought their armies to the fields of Kawanakajima. A young warrior named Kanetsugu Naoe, who was fond of Kenshin's tactics and code of honor, came to join the Uesugi army.
With Kenshin's divine strategies, there is no way we can lose. Chapter 1, Battle of Kawanakajima. Victory for honor and...
The Uesugi army was victorious at Kawanakajima. However, neither Shingen nor Kenshin was satisfied with the battle, so the two men decided to save their conflict for another day. Meanwhile, Nobunaga Oda had begun to expand his territory while Kenshin and Shingen were busy fighting one another. Kenshin was furious when he learned that a lord of lesser influence than himself was growing so powerful. He quickly readied his army to attack the Oda, where they were positioned at Tedorigawa. However, recent heavy rains had separated the main Oda forces from their commander. Nobunaga was nowhere to be seen. As a result, Nobunaga's retainers Katsuie and Hideyoshi were left to fend off Kenshin's assault by themselves.
The Demon King wishes to spread his reign, but honor will not allow him. Chapter 2, Battle of Tedorigawa. Victory for honor and justice!
The Battle of Tedorigawa ended in victory for the Uesugi. However, they were unable to pursue their enemy, as Kenshin died of illness soon after the battle ended. Time passed, and Nobunaga was assassinated by Mitsuhide Akechi in a rebellion at the temple of Honnoji. Hideyoshi then killed Mitsuhide, becoming Nobunaga's successor and amassing great power. Masamune Date saw that he was no match against Hideyoshi's capability to wage war, and surrendered. This left the Hojo clan, who occupied the eastern Kanto region, as Hideyoshi's only remaining enemy. To overtake the Hojo stronghold of Odawara Castle, Hideyoshi divided his army and attacked their position from two sides. Kanetsugu was among the warriors who advanced from the west.
Lord Kenshin may be gone, but the light of justice shall never fade. Chapter 3, Siege of Odawara Castle. Victory for honor and justice!
Odawara Castle fell, and Japan was finally unified by Hideyoshi. However, after Hideyoshi's death, Ieyasu Tokugawa stood up to claim control of the land. He was opposed by Kanetsugu's friend and Hideyoshi's former retainer, Mitsunari Ishida. Kanetsugu was angered by Ieyasu's lust for power and sent him a letter expressing that such actions were disdained by the Uesugi Code of Honor. He then joined Mitsunari's forces to oppose Ieyasu. The two friends decided to attack Ieyasu separately, one from the east and the other from the west, thus effectively surrounding him. It was a clever tactic that they hoped would do away with him completely.
So far, everything is going as planned, and honorable Japan is near. Chapter 4, Battle of Hasedo. Victory for honor and justice!
Kanetsugu's prowess brought victory for the Uesugi army at Hasedo. They had defeated the Lord of Oshu, Masamune. To prove that Mitsunari had not died in vain, Kanetsugu swore revenge on the Tokugawa. With Yukimura Sanada, he marched for Edo Castle, the Tokugawa's main base and residence of Hidetada, son of Ieyasu. Their unexpected strike on Edo Castle caught Hidetada off guard, giving the Uesugi an initial advantage. However, Ieyasu himself was also heading for the city, with his enormous army in tow.
Mitsunari, in your honor I will build a right and just world. Chapter 5, Siege of Edo Castle. Victory for honor and justice!
Disgusted at Ieyasu for using Hideyoshi's death as a justification to rule the land, Kanetsugu allied himself with Mitsunari Ishida, Ieyasu's greatest opponent. Enraged, Ieyasu marched east to destroy the Uesugi. He didn't realize that Mitsunari was also marching from the west, and his army would soon be surrounded. But just when it looked like Kanetsugu and Mitsunari's plot had succeeded, one of Ieyasu's scouts learned what was happening. Ieyasu quickly turned his forces around, sending Masamune Date to deal with the Uesugi. However, Kanetsugu swore to honor his promise to his friend and pursued Ieyasu. At Kawanakajima, he finally caught up to his enemy.
I will keep my promise. Mitsunari, wait for me. Kanetsugu's dream, last stand against Ieyasu. Victory for honor and justice.
Nene was the beloved wife of Hideyoshi. She was a highly devoted woman and always did her best to support Hideyoshi as he strove to serve his master Nobunaga Oda. After hearing that Nobunaga had been assassinated by Mitsuhide Akechi at Honnoji, Hideyoshi brought his current military campaign to a halt and raced to find and eliminate Mitsuhide. He finally caught Mitsuhide at Yamazaki. The battle that ensued would be the most important of Hideyoshi's life. Nene also went to Yamazaki, not only to support her husband, but also his retainers Kiyomasa Kato, Masanori Fukushima, and Mitsunari Ishida, all of whom she cared for as if they were her own sons.
What my darling wants, my darling gets. I'll see to it. Chapter 1, Battle of Yamazaki. Let's do a good job out there, everybody.
Hideyoshi won the Battle of Yamazaki and avenged the death of his lord Nobunaga. As a result, Hideyoshi became Nobunaga's official successor. However, Nobunaga's sister Oichi had never liked Hideyoshi. She was married to Katsuie Shibata, another powerful Oda retainer. At her assertion, Katsuie led his men to challenge Hideyoshi at Shizugatake. Hideyoshi now had another fight on his hands, just to defend his newfound position. Nene also went to Shizugatake to aid her beloved husband and the retainers she considered her sons.
Are you okay out there, honey? I'm here to back you up. Chapter 2, Battle of Shizugatake. Let's do a good job out there, everybody!
Hideyoshi was victorious at Shizugatake, and Katsuie Shibata was slain. Oichi, along with the rest of the Oda clan, disappeared, and now the Toyotomi had come to reign supreme. The next person to challenge Hideyoshi was none other than Nobunaga's one-time ally, Ieyasu Tokugawa. The two warriors clashed several times until they came to fight a decisive battle at Komaki-Nagakute. The winner would take a great step forward to become the ruler of all Japan. And once again, Nene was there to defend those she thought so dearly of.
Wow, honey! This is the fight that's gonna put you on top! Chapter 3, Battle of Komaki-Nagakute. Let's do a good job out there, everybody!
Hideyoshi defeated Ieyasu at Komaki-Nagakute. With this success, it was easy for him to bring other surrounding territories under his control. Now, only two other opponents stood between him and complete domination of the land: the Hojo clan of Kanto and the Date clan of Oshu. Hideyoshi's next objective was to overcome the Hojo at their home in Odawara Castle. In order to secure safe passage to Odawara for the Toyotomi army, Nene set out to defeat a band of pirates that was allied with the Hojo. Cleverly, she snuck aboard a merchant ship to catch them by surprise.
These pirates are bothering my darling. This won't do. Chapter 4. Pirate Hunt. Let's do a good job out there, everybody.
Thanks to Nene's efforts, the pirates were defeated, and Hideyoshi and his troops enjoyed safe passage to Odawara. Hideyoshi was finally going to put an end to the Hojo. Hideyoshi demonstrated his great power by summoning all of his retainers to attack Odawara Castle from two directions. To aid her husband's efforts, Nene joined the forces attacking from the west.
We're almost there, baby. An end to all this mean, nasty chaos. Chapter 5. Siege of Odawara Castle. Let's do a good job out there, everybody!
With the help of his dear wife Nene, Hideyoshi was successful in uniting Japan. However, after a time, Hideyoshi died of illness. Arguments over his succession split the Toyotomi clan between two of his retainers, Mitsunari Ishida and Masanori Fukushima. Each man formed a large army, one in the east and one in the west. Eventually, tensions between them escalated into a battle at Sekigahara. Nene could not stand to see these two men, both of whom she cared for as if family, fight against each other. She headed to Sekigahara to set things right and put a stop to them.
I thought everybody was supposed to be happy now. What happened? Nene's dream. Melee at Sekigahara. No more fighting now. I mean it.
A clan of ninjas known as the Fuma served the Hojo in Kanto. Led by the mysterious Kotarō Fuma, their past remained shrouded in mystery. The year was 1572. The Hojo clan's ally, Shingen Takeda, set forth to capture the capital. On his way there, he lured Ieyasu Tokugawa's forces out into the open at Mikatagahara, driving them to the brink of destruction. Ieyasu's men fought back bravely as they struggled to save their very lives. Kotarō Fuma, a ninja in service of the Hojo, obeyed his master's request to aid the Takeda and set out to join them at Mikatagahara.
Shingen wants to put an end to my fun. I can't have that. Chapter 1. Melee at Mikatagahara. Chaos is never satiated.
Shingen was slain at Mikatagahara, and without their leader, the Takeda fell. Kotarō took charge, forcing the Tokugawa to surrender, and claimed vast new territory for the Hojo. Meanwhile, Nobunaga Oda was busy in central Japan as he battled with the temple Honganji and its allies the Mori for control of Osaka Bay. Taking an interest in the man who was widely known as the Demon King, Kotarō went to Osaka Bay to see Nobunaga in person.
The Demon King? Here's one demon that rejects his rule. Chapter 2, Battle of Osaka Bay. Chaos is never satiated.
Having wreaked havoc in Osaka Bay, a satisfied Kotarō left after he saw the shadow of death looming over Nobunaga. Later, Kotaro's intuition proved correct when Nobunaga was assassinated at Honnoji by one of his own retainers. Following this dramatic development, Hideyoshi Toyotomi began a quest to unify the land. Kotarō, however, preferred the chaos. To ensure the continuation of Japan's Dark Age, he led the allied Hojo Tokugawa forces to attack Hideyoshi's Osaka Castle. And to make things even more interesting, he challenged Hanzo Hattori, a ninja in service of the Tokugawa, to see who could be the first to slay Hideyoshi.
Let's play a game, Conqueror. Loser forfeits his head. Chapter 3, Siege of Osaka Castle. Chaos is never satiated.
Kotarō assassinated Hideyoshi and the land was thrown into chaos once again. The Hojo clan used this chance to assert its power. Through further campaigns, they became Japan's strongest feudal clan and forced even Masamune Date, Lord of Oshu, to serve them. Growing bored as things settled down, Kotarō decided to betray the Hojo and gathered together the remnants of the Tokugawa clan to attack the Hojo castle at Odawara.
The Hojo are so dull, but it might be fun to watch them die. Chapter 4, Kotaro's Insurrection. Chaos is never satiated.
Odawara Castle fell and the Hojo were destroyed. All that had once belonged to his masters now belonged to Kotarō himself. With almost nothing left to accomplish, Kotarō figured he may as well unify the land. He set out for the island of Kyūshū, where his only opposition remained. In Kyūshū, he found the Shimazu, Tachibana, and the last remaining soldiers of the Toyotomi waiting for him. They were led by Hideyoshi's former retainer, Mitsunari Ishida. As Kotarō prepared to fight, he realized this was the last great battle he would ever have to enjoy.
Now pain and suffering shall overtake the land of the dying sun. Chapter 5, Conquest for Kyūshū. Chaos is never conquered.
A few years after Nobunaga was assassinated at Honnoji, the land was under Hideyoshi's control, and only the Hojo remained in his way. Hideyoshi decided to destroy the Hojo. He gathered all of his retainers from around the land and ordered an attack on their castle at Odawara. Kotarō Fuma found this most amusing. His masters, however, were in a panic. They held a council to plan a response to the attack, but no one could agree on the proper method. Annoyed, Kotarō left the castle to deal with the threat himself.
Welcome to my castle. Soon your heads will garnish its gate. Kotaro's dream. Defense of Odawara Castle. Chaos is never conquered.
Musashi Miyamoto was a master swordsman. When he was but a mere boy, he defeated a man who claimed to be the greatest swordsman in all the land, and had never lost a battle since. Musashi came to think of himself as greatest in the land. In hopes of finding fame, Musashi left his home in the country and went off to fight at Sekigahara by joining the Western Army. However, skilled though he was, he soon learned that his powers alone could not determine victory in such a large battle. The soldiers on the battlefield were countless. For every man he cut down, 2 or 3 appeared in his place. Scared for his life, Musashi attempted to flee from the battlefield.
I thought I was invincible. I had no idea. Chapter 1. Battle of Sekigahara. The way of the sword. I will perfect it.
The Battle of Sekigahara ended in favor of the Eastern Army. The leader of the Western Army, Mitsunari Ishida, faded away and none were sure where he went. Musashi managed to escape the gruesome battlefield and survived. However, bandits had come down from the hills to hunt the weakened samurai of the Western Army. Musashi had not managed to free himself from trouble just yet. When a group of bandits approached him, Musashi flew into a rage and rushed forward to meet them in battle.
If all you can do with them is hurt others, you aren't worthy of your swords. Chapter 2. Village Rescue. The way of the sword. I will perfect it.
Musashi defeated the bandits, but he found that killing them gave him little pleasure. He began to wonder if there was any way a swordsman could earn a living without being forced to take human lives. After the Battle of Sekigahara, the land had come largely under the control of Ieyasu Tokugawa. In response to this, Hideyori, head of the Toyotomi in Osaka, made peace with the Tokugawa. He arranged to meet with Ieyasu at Edo Castle. However, Ieyasu's retainer Masanobu Honda saw this visit as an opportunity to assassinate Hideyori, thus winning even greater power for his lord. Masanobu employed a swordsman named Kojiro Sasaki for the deed and sent him off in the direction of Kyoto.
The sword is not a tool of death. Do you hear me? Chapter 3. Chaos in Kyoto. The way of the sword. I will perfect it.
Musashi saved Hideyori, who was then able to flee from Kyoto to safety. The following year, Musashi met Kojiro again for a duel at Ganryujima. As usual, Musashi won. Meanwhile, the friction between the Tokugawa and Toyotomi had intensified yet again. Yukimura Sanada, whom Musashi had met while in Kyoto, invited him to come to Hideyori's aid once more. Musashi accepted and headed to Osaka Castle. But not long after he arrived, so did the vast army of the Tokugawa. Ieyasu had the castle completely surrounded. Fighting back memories of the horror he had encountered at Sekigahara, Musashi set out to take part in a desperate battle.
I'm getting closer. I can feel it. Chapter 4, Osaka Campaign. The way of the sword. I will perfect it.
The mighty conqueror Ieyasu Tokugawa fell to the twin blades of Musashi Miyamoto in Osaka. Back in Edo, Ieyasu's son, Hidetada, was appointed as the second shogun of the Tokugawa. In response to this, Yukimura Sanada set out to capture the city of Edo and effectively unify the land in the name of Hideyori Toyotomi. Continuing to provide assistance, Musashi followed alongside him. Little did they know, the sinister Kotaro Fuma was watching their movements closely. It was his desire to keep Japan in a period of chaos, and killing the two of them was the perfect opportunity to do so.
Finally, a chance to use my sword to end suffering. This is it! Chapter 5, Siege of Edo Castle. A new future is coming. For Japan.
One day, Hideyoshi Toyotomi and Ieyasu Tokugawa got into an argument over who was the strongest warrior in the land. Ieyasu said it was Tadakatsu Honda, while Hideyoshi swore it was Sakon Shima. They decided that the only way to settle the argument was to hold a mock battle between the two men, with Tadakatsu leading the Eastern Army and Sakon leading the Western Army. Musashi heard of this and desired to prove that he was stronger than either one of them. Swords in hand, he rode out to Kanegasaki, where the competition was to take place.
You want to decide the strongest in the land? Then look no further. Musashi's dream. Tournament of Champions. A new future is coming. For Japan